In today's video, I'm going to be talking about why we meditate on a really practical level, also tips and tricks to make it as easy as possible for you, because meditation should be fun and enjoyable. Of course, there's going to be big growth and some discomfort that we move through in the process, because that is a natural part of going through our healing journey. But primarily, it can be a lot of fun. And I'm also going to be talking about upgrading our system and how meditation works with our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and our spiritual body to give us big upgrades in how we think, perform, feel, and exude ourselves, and the other ways that we up-level through the process, because it can become very magical when you partake in regular meditation. Hi, I'm Drake Nyx, and this is Drake Nyx Vision. I'm an intuitive guide and soul coach, and I help people just like you find their purpose and passion, bring it out into the world, and make the planet a better place while you're at it. Today, I want to talk about meditation because it is so foundational in developing a life that we can really build upon to pursue our goals and dreams, to become more conscious, co-create healthier relationships with those around us, and contribute to healthier planetary systems. It's all about the development of consciousness. As I've said before, we are all the universe in conversation with itself. When we take part in meditation and we become more self-aware about how we are that part of the universe, viewing out into the world, seeing, observing, making sense of things, and building upon, creating upon what it is that we are interacting with. I actually had somebody comment on a previous video saying that subconscious meditation is easier. Yes, subconscious meditation is easier. If you go to bed and you put in headphones and you put on a guided meditation and you fall asleep, you put in some music, and that allows you to just rest there peacefully, and you can just kind of check out. There are benefits to that, absolutely. Relaxation and allowing your body to come to a place of neutrality and allowing it to find a restorative place. That's all really important and really great and serves a purpose. And at the same time, our conscious awareness, our conscious participation with meditation is so vital, because that is the piece that helps us to actually begin to become more aware of our internal self, our mind, the way that we use our body and how we treat people and how we are affecting the environments around us. So it's really vital that we do take part in these activities of the action of sitting down and learning to meditate. So meditation is all about training the mind. In previous videos, I've talked about how the ego, the mind, they are not our enemy. They are part of the system, and they serve a really important role in helping us to look out into the world and see, how do I want to participate? How do I want to grow? What do I dream about? What do I envision? What am I building towards? It is vital in our evolution, individually and collectively. At the same time, the mind develops from a young age, whereby it learns how to understand the world, because as a human being, you need to know how to survive. And then with that, how you protect yourself, because once you understand what the rules are, then you are making sure that you're constantly aware of yourself so that you can gain the resources that you need, the acceptance that you need by the communities around you, and learn how to achieve your goals and dreams. The way that you learn that, though, isn't always the healthiest, because we learn from our families and friends and from community members about how we get what we want, which sometimes includes narcissistic, manipulative, fearful, and misguided ideas about how the world works and how we're supposed to participate. And that's at no fault of anybody. We all go through the same process of being born and raised. And eventually in this journey, it is up to us to come to the place where we begin to be self-aware. We begin to unwrap the beautiful gifts that have been given to us in the form of belief systems, programs so that we can take out what we don't need and then put in what we do want, or leave it as open as possible so that we are more receptive to whatever life brings to us. I see the mind like a dog. And for anybody who has a dog or has seen the wide range of dog behaviors, if you spend time with your dog, you can develop a rich source of communication between you and your pup. It takes time and dedication, though, to build that relationship. Somebody who has not trained their dog, you can tell, because the dog does not respond well, it doesn't listen to commands. You see people on the street with their dog just like pulling them any which way, which drives me nuts because, Dad, don't let your dog just pull you around. The mind does the same thing, right? So your mind is constantly trying to call the shots. And if you just let it call the shots, you are the person with the dog on the leash, letting the dog take you on the walk. The mind is going to do the same thing to you. It is going to take you through whatever its agenda is based on undeveloped, thoughtful practices. So it's going to be functioning off of your most baseline functions, which is based on accessing resources. So food, shelter, physical touch, connection, sexuality, self-protection, ego, desire for whatever it is that drives you. And so oftentimes when this happens, you don't have a lot of control because you're just going to do the thing that your mind says to do. It's unconscious, and sometimes in retrospect, you're like, oh, I wish that I wouldn't have ate that second piece of cake. I shouldn't have maybe had the first one because I already know that I am gluten intolerant, or I shouldn't have sugar, or I have some sort of awareness that that thing is not good for me, but then my mind overrides because it just wants it, and then it's gone. So in meditation, we're learning to observe the thoughts to see what is the baseline responses that we have within our habits so that we can begin to work with them and change them. Meditation gives the mind something to focus on. So just like when we're training a dog, it's good to have treats. It's good to have the commands. It's good to have positive reinforcement. It's also really good to take away freedoms. I have found that that is the most effective thing for my dogs at times, is if they do something that they're not supposed to do, you remove the freedom from them. So for my dogs, when we are in the front yard, if they leave the yard, if they try to leave the yard, then they go inside immediately. And over time, this creates the understanding that if they do the thing that I don't want them to do, then they lose the freedom to do the thing that they want to do, which is be outside. So this has worked so well with my oldest dog, and my younger dog has really followed suit because she's seen the older dog and seen like, this is the way that we act when we're outside. So similarly, we need to create this type of environment for our own minds of something to concentrate on, benefits, things that we enjoy about it that makes us want to come back to it, and some discipline and some structure so that we know the expectations of what the mind is supposed to be doing when we sit down to meditate, or when we're out and about in the world and we're doing more of like a walking meditation or a meditation while we are doing dishes. You can do meditation anywhere, but the sitting practice is really helpful for setting the conditions and the expectations for when you're doing something that is a little bit more distracting. One of the primary reasons that we're doing this, beyond all of the really beautiful things that come with learning to meditate, is so that we can be as present as possible for other people, for the planet, so that we can be of greatest service. And I really tried to hone in on that with my last video on meditation. But I want to say it again, because in our spiritual growth, that is the epitome of anything we do, is to be of service. When we move from the place of just doing things for ourselves and realize that we're doing it for the collective evolution and we're participating in something greater than just us. So let's dive into some tips and tricks to make this as enjoyable as possible, because meditation can be really fun. There are some moments where it can get kind of uncomfortable and we don't like what we're seeing, and especially if you are not willing to deal with your own participation in your trauma, drama, the things that are happening in your reality that seem out of your control. The more you meditate, the more you realize that a lot of these things, the seeds of them, do stem from within in some way. Our daily challenges now often are imprints of things that happened once upon a time in our youth. And so when we start to develop pattern recognition through the meditative process, it becomes easier to identify exactly what that looks like. So settings and ambiance are vital. vital. If you want to meditate, some of you can have like a really clear room free of distraction. You have your comfy little pillow and maybe light a candle. You keep it just super, super basic. That's great if that's what works for you. I like to take mine up a notch because I am a Taurus and I like comfort. I like things that smell good. I want beauty. And so I have my own meditation corner that has my altar space, which I think is really important because we're bringing in intention. Within the altar space, you can put anything there. It doesn't matter your religion. It's all about calling in your best self and what you are hoping to bring out of you into the world. So you might put something on your altar that reminds you of your creativity, of your purpose, of somebody that you love and that you like really want to be a better person for that person. You might have somebody that you really admire. You might have a religious figure that is really important to you. And so you can put it on your altar in order to remind you when you open your eyes, this is why I'm doing this work. So again, setting the environment and having a space of comfort. I have my yoga mat, I have a blanket so I can put it over my shoulders, I have something that I can burn, so I have my candle, and then I have Palo Santo, or I have something that when I burn it, I smell a cue that reminds me that this is my place of meditation, especially after 15 plus years of meditating. When I smell those types of things, it instantly brings me to a place where I'm a little bit more centered, ready to really come into a place of stillness. Some people meditate in silence, and depending on your tradition, that might be what is recommended. I've done that a lot of times. I think that there is benefit in that as well. But for the beginner, you might want to try listening to music. If I wake up really early in the morning, I don't really want something that's like really, really quiet and gentle. I need maybe something with a little bit of a beat. So I'll find a really good meditation that has some diversity within the music that makes me feel like I am waking up while I am getting into alignment. So think about music that in the morning that you'd want to listen to that wouldn't just make you fall back asleep. Obviously, you don't want anything too loud, but you can find something that works with your system that inspires you and makes you feel really good and present and reminds you to breathe, come back to consciousness again and again. In the evening, you might want to listen to something that is a little bit more quiet because you are trying to quiet the mind. You are trying to gather yourself after a day of so much stimulation, and you're bringing yourself back to a place of stillness so that you can go to bed and sleep well through the night. So that is sound, that is smell. You might even think about lighting. Some people prefer it to be totally dark, and so they will put an eye mask on, make sure all the lights are turned off except for a candle. I actually really like meditating with light sometimes. Sometimes my visuals are actually a lot more beautiful having the light behind my eyelids. So it's all personal preference. Play around with it and see what works for you to create the ideal meditation space that is going to make you want to sit down. Once you're there in the meditation, there are different hand positions that you can do, different mudras. So you can do some research to see if there's any way that you hold your hands that feels better. You can just have them resting in your lap. Sometimes I have them up in order to signify that I am looking to receive. Sometimes I put them on the ground to signify that I am looking to ground myself. Sometimes they are on my heart. They are on different chakras that I feel need a little bit more love and attention. Play around with those hand positions. See what makes the most sense. There's always this guy right here. This is kind of my go-to. And so I just have my hands in my lap with my index finger and my thumb touching. See if it works for you. So those are some recommendations. Again, there are just so many options out there. Do some research, go to some groups. You'll discover lots of different ways that you can hold your hands. You can also bring ceremony into it, which I personally do because it really helps to set the space. Every time I sit down, I call in the directions, I call in the earth, the divine mother, the divine feminine, I call in the cosmos, the divine father, the divine masculine. I call to my soul, my heart space, and really tap into the energy that is within me and without me, really feeling the soul that exists in all things. I set my space and I set my protection, and then I begin. So once you set the space and you get into the meditative practice, there are a lot of practices that just talk about observing the breath going in and out of the nose. That is like meditation 101, what most people think about. I think And through my various practices and through this last year of getting more into breath work, I think that conscious connected breathing is one of the most powerful things that you can bring into your meditative practice, which is you're breathing in and then you're bringing it down and you're bringing it all the way down. In my previous video, I talked about breathing into the tummy, how important that is, that we're really utilizing all of the space with all of the air that we can fill within us. We're bringing it in, we're bringing it down, and then we bring it back up, and we don't really allow for much of a pause. We're just sticking with nose breathing. How you breathe, again, there are just so many different techniques of like switching between different nostrils, breathing in through the nose and then out through the mouth, which you can do if you need to calm yourself. That can be a useful tool. Ultimately, though, when I am meditating, I really like to have my mouth closed. I just breathe through my nose and I do the up and down. Now, with this conscious connected breathing, there are two things that I have found are really helpful. One is you can imagine the breath going all the way up and over your head and back down through your tailbone and then back up around. You can switch the direction too, depending on how that feels for you. The other one is that you can take a breath and you can imagine it going through your heart and then down and around through that base chakra, through your front, through the heart, and then back and around and over the top of your head through the heart and then back around through the base. And so basically what you're doing there is you're making an infinity symbol that goes through your heart. It's a really great way to focus on the heart space, to activate the heart space, and to maintain a focus that goes beyond just the breathing. As you get better at this, once you have a lot of practice, you can do it anywhere. You can literally do it while you're driving or having a conversation with somebody. These are tools that are meant to be practiced at home, but then brought out into the world. So as you're doing this breathing work, we're training the mind to focus on something. If your mind starts to think about thoughts, that's totally okay. And there's a couple of different layers to this that I want to point out. The first one is you identify the belief or the thought or the feeling that is coming up, and you just observe it and you let it go and you go back to focusing on your breathing. The other layer to this is that you observe the thought, and if you have developed the tools, you can actually trace it to the most recent time that it was brought up and then keep tracing it back to the time before that, tracing it back all the way to your early childhood, and then really taking a look at that scenario about what existed there in that moment that created that feeling, and then work to actually change the energy of that situation. This is the work I do with clients. I help to teach those skills so that we learn how to move through our soul through past, present, and future in order to untangle any old energies that are no longer serving us. I'm not expecting you to know how to do that, and I think that it is really important for you to have a container with an experienced guide to teach you how to do this work before you do it yourself, because it is very easy to get wrapped up in the story. Oftentimes when the belief comes up, we just fixate on the idea over and over and over again, and we look at it from every angle, and we're trying to find a solution, and it actually just creates more tension and actually creates more complexity that makes it harder to solve. So you can eventually get to the place where you were traveling the thought and finding its origin. But again, when you're just starting out, just concentrate on observing it. And over time, as you do this, you'll eventually come to a place where you can begin changing the thought pattern. Meditation is a great tool for helping us to learn how to reprogram our thoughts and our internal wiring so that we can have the best versions of ourselves show up. All the things that we're dealing with, any sort of issue that you have right now where you're like, oh, this is just the way I am hardwired like this. Well, yes, hardwiring does take place over the course of our life and then really solidifies, but it doesn't mean that it is permanent. I know a lot of older people that say, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Lie. I can teach old dogs new tricks all day. Similarly, older people can learn how to think differently and how to behave differently. It's more so that they just don't want to because there is work involved, and that's scary. There's also a lot of self-awareness that comes up that might bring the realization that the ways that they have acted and treated people haven't been very nice. And so those bags that they're carrying are extremely heavy, and to unpack them, it just seems like way too big of an endeavor. So there are some people, no matter what your age is, that just don't want to do this work. And we can't force people to do this work either. It is not our job to convince other people to do the work. It is only our job to do the work inside ourselves. I also want to mention that I think it's really important to set a practice in the morning and the evening. So basically you are setting a thread, a cord through the day that is holding you in a state of intention. When you wake up, you are setting that intention for the day, that is the energy that you want to hold. And then through the day, you have this guiding force that even when you get sidetracked, you have something to come back to, which is the breath that reminds you what feeling centered looks like, what being at peace in yourself looks like, how to redirect your thoughts so that you don't end up hyper focusing on something that you don't want to, so that you can be more present for the next thing that comes up. Again, it's a practice though, and it is a lifelong practice. It is not something that is going to happen overnight. It is something that will ebb and flow too. You're going to have times that you meditate all the time, and you're going to have times that you don't really meditate. And each time that you come back to it, you're going to see that you have gone deeper and deeper into the practice and have reached deeper levels of understanding within yourself. So now on to the fun stuff, upgrading the system. Because when we sit in meditation, we are basically saying, yes, universe, I want to improve. Yes, universe, I want this upgrade. Yes, universe, I am here to receive. I have limited my distractions, and I am sitting here because I want to be in this communion with the sacred, with the divine, with light, with chi, with whatever that you want to call this energy that moves through our bodies and through all things. We are here to do the work to bring more of that out of ourselves and into the world. In doing so, we become more aware, and with our awareness, we also become more magical. So in meditating, many people who go through the meditation process begin to unlock their psychic abilities. They begin to have visions when they're sitting down and meditating. They begin to see colors, they begin to see energy, because they are becoming more aware of what is currently here. So the way that I talk about how I can see energy, this has always been here. When I was a kid, I probably could have seen it, but I was so distracted by the things around me that nobody ever pointed it out. Once somebody pointed out that there was energy, it was very easy for me to see. And that's the same for most people that I talk to. Once I point it out, they're like, oh, I can see it. Or if they can't see it, if you rub your hands together, you can actually feel the way that the energy moves in between your hands, like magnets. This is something that we teach and learn in Reiki. So practice this, because it's just always a fun thing to do, of being more attuned to these energies, whether or not you're feeling them or you are seeing them. You can also feel them inside your body. In a future video, I'm going to be talking more about the energy field, what it's comprised of, and the different nuances of it. But this is a great starter into beginning to get a better sense of what your energy field is made of, just by the conscious attention to the fact that it exists. There are other really wonderful parts about meditation, such as we do the work to slough off all of the old beliefs and the programming and the things that don't serve us, we become more equipped to love ourselves unconditionally. And that is one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself, because through this life, the primary person that you're going to be able to rely on is yourself. Having that type of depth of relationship with yourself makes life so much easier to go through. And as you do the work of learning how to love yourself more unconditionally, you are better equipped to love other people unconditionally as well. It starts from within, and then we're able to bring it outwards. Along with this, the increased awareness that we bring allows us to be more present in this moment, so that we can be more aware of how we are designing our lives and what types of actions that we are doing right now in order to achieve our goals, to become the person that we really want to be. But we have to slow down. It's just like when you were learning guitar, for instance, when you were learning the different chords, you play the chords really slow at first to really make sure the hand position is right and to make sure that your transitions are smooth. And then you slowly start to speed up that process. That's generally how it goes. Similarly, with our mind, we are working to slow it down with the way that our mind is functioning, so that we can observe the thought, say, oh, the way that thought is coming through isn't quite what I want it to be. I'm going to make a slight adjustment so that the tone is more aligned with what I want it to be. The meditation piece is the primary focal point for how we become conscious creators in this reality, and how we become aware of both ourselves and become aware of each other so that we can begin to co-create more harmonious realities for the future. So I'm going to keep talking about this. There's so many pieces to meditation, and again, it is a lifelong journey, and we are here together to experience it and to grow into greater mastery of our self-knowledge and knowledge of the world, and how to live our lives more holistically together. Again, there's just so much to this, so if I left anything out, please let me know. I would love your questions, comments, any ideas that you have, things that you love to do when you're meditating. I want to know. Also, my books are open. I am still accepting clients, so please reach out to me at drakenexvision@gmail.com if you would like to work with me. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that you can take at least one of these concepts that we've talked about today and implement it into your life, and let me know if you see some improvement. I want to know how it's going. I hope you have a really beautiful day. Feel the love that is within and without, and I will see you next time.